Have you ever asked, why is people pleasing bad? If so, you're probably asking because you heard it's bad for you or for others, or maybe both. And you might be worried that it means you should stop these behaviors right away, all at once. That thought alone can be overwhelming. If that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. This may be a little controversial, but the truth is, not all people pleasing is a problem. In this video, you'll learn how to tell the difference between the kind that's actually helpful to others and to you, that it's perfectly fine to keep, and the kind that quietly drains you, that you'll probably want to work on changing, not because it's wrong, but because it leaves you exhausted, burnt out, and with no time or energy left for what matters most to you. I'm Donna Scanio. After 17 years as a therapist and now as a coach, I've helped many clients break free from people-pleasing, and I've done the same in my own life. I've learned that seeing the difference between helpful and unhelpful types of people-pleasing is often a powerful turning point. First, it helps you make changes only where they're needed instead of trying to drastically change everything at once. Second, it helps you find balance between two extremes. On one side, being basically a professional people pleaser who does everything for everyone and always puts yourself last. And on the other side, and what many of us fear, becoming completely self-involved and never doing anything for anyone, always putting your own needs first. And sadly, the first type, being a professional people pleaser, doesn't come with a paycheck. I've found this out the hard way. And if you're here, I get it. Maybe you're wondering if people-pleasing is why you feel so drained and resentful. Or maybe you're just trying to sort out the mixed messages. Isn't people-pleasing just being kind and helpful, and isn't that supposed to be a good thing? That's exactly why the question, is people-pleasing bad, or why is people-pleasing bad, comes up so often. When we realize people-pleasing might be causing problems for us, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, like we need to change a huge part of our personality overnight. It can even feel baked in to who we are, but the good news is you don't have to change everything. You're not broken, and you don't need a complete personality overhaul. Often what you really need is more balance. If you watched my first video called What is People-Pleasing Really?, you know how I define people-pleasing and the many ways it can show up. I also explained why I often use the terms people-pleasing and overfunctioning side by side. They may look a little different, but they share the same core dynamic: sidelining your own needs in service of something or someone else that comes with long-term cost to your time, energy, and even your well-being. I also mentioned other patterns in the people-pleasing family where this same dynamic is at play, like overachieving, overperforming, overhelping, and perfectionism. As I talked about in that first video, awareness of people-pleasing patterns is the first step in breaking free. And the second part of step one, let's call it step 1B, is noticing when people-pleasing is actually a problem and when it's not. So it's not as straightforward as I'm a people-pleaser or not, and therefore the solution isn't as black and white as people-pleasing is bad for you and you should stop. If you haven't already, please download my free workbook, The People-Pleasing Primer. It'll help you spot the people-pleasing patterns that quietly drain you and walk you through the hidden costs and what can change when you start shifting those patterns. The link is below this video and in the description. So, people-pleasing isn't always a problem. There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to make someone else happy or comfortable, or even putting someone else's needs ahead of your own occasionally for a short amount of time. And sometimes putting your needs aside briefly is not only okay, it's healthy. It can be a genuine expression of kindness that builds relationships and keeps you aligned with your values. Now, when I say values, I don't mean morals, that's different. I mean what you value as your deepest desires for how you want to behave in this world, how you want to treat others, yourself, and the world around you. Many of us who have people-pleasing tendencies deeply value being caring, helpful, kind, giving, generous, or supportive. Or those with overachieving tendencies may value being hardworking, high-achieving, committed, productive, or responsible. So sometimes we may choose to put someone else's needs first for the sake of living one or more of these values, and that can work just fine. It works for us because it feels good when our actions are in line with a value, and it might also be helpful to someone else at the same time. When these types of people pleasing behaviors are done in moderation, with flexibility, and with awareness, it can enhance your life. They allow you to keep your kind, caring spirit without neglecting your own needs. I call this helpful people pleasing. It helps others and feels good to you without the long term costs. It doesn't drain your time and energy or make you lose track of your own needs, even though it might have a short term cost, like you might put your needs aside momentarily and come back to them later. Some actions can be good for others and for you at the same time when you're not neglecting yourself. For example, let's say you agree to babysit your niece one night because your sister was invited to a fun event at the last minute. You had plans to complete a project at home that night, but you know you can do it tomorrow instead. Supporting your sister matters to you, and you enjoy spending time with your niece. So, a small short term cost, but worth it overall. But behavior turns into unhelpful people pleasing when it becomes rigid, when you feel like you have to do it, sidelining your needs on autopilot all the time without even asking what it's costing you. It's when you're compelled to put others first too often and for too long. That's when it has long term costs. It drains your energy and makes you lose track of what you need and what matters most to you. An example here would be you're always saying yes at work, taking on every extra project, or covering for everyone else, even when you're already overextended and stressed, keeping up with your own deadlines. So in this case, it might be helpful to others, but overall it has too much of a cost to you and you end up neglecting your own needs. Some might call this difference healthy versus unhealthy or even toxic people pleasing. I prefer talking about it as helpful and unhelpful because it's clearer, less judgmental, and avoids black and white thinking. I don't know about you, but hearing something is unhealthy or toxic feels kind of scary, and that can be anxiety inducing. And that's just not helpful to anyone. Another way to think about the difference is with a concept I've heard called overing. It's when a behavior crosses the line from being fine and working for everyone into being too much. So giving becomes overgiving, achieving becomes overachieving, helping becomes overhelping, high functioning becomes overfunctioning. I sometimes joke even adulting can turn into overadulting. People pleasers can be the adultiest adult in the room, if you know what I mean. At the core of any overing is that compulsion or drive or internal pressure to set your own needs aside for other people or for tasks or outcomes. Here's the tricky part. There's no universal rule for deciding. Only you can decide where that line is in your own life for when a behavior goes from helpful to unhelpful, or where it falls in the range from helpful to unhelpful. And often it takes a lot of awareness and sometimes learning the hard way to figure it out. The question becomes, what is it costing you? And sometimes we have to experience the drain and depletion to realize that we need to change it. Believe me, I know this from experience. We'd all love a clear, cut and dried rule or a neat little 5 tips to stop for good video or blog post. But people pleasing is just more nuanced than that. It's not black and white, always bad or always good. There's a range between helpful and unhelpful. We often swing too far in one direction or the other, doing too much for others all the time, wearing ourselves out completely, or walling ourselves off and cutting off help to others, becoming over-boundaried, before settling into a middle ground partway between the two extremes. There is a balancing point where we want to land, somewhere in the middle of the range, living in alignment with our values, helping and caring, but also setting boundaries when needed, both with others and with ourselves. As I mentioned earlier, values are about how you want to treat yourself, others, and the world around you. Notice that this includes how you want to treat yourself. This is your reminder that it's not just okay, it's crucial to treat yourself with the same care you treat others. Keeping others in the equation, yes, but making sure we're in the equation too, not above others, not beneath them, but on equal footing. And because finding that balance isn't easy, it can help to have support, someone to sort through the patterns with you, whether that's a trusted friend, a group, or a professional counselor or coach. So I'd invite you to keep the distinction in mind between helpful and unhelpful people pleasing when you're deciding which patterns you want to work on changing in your life. I'm going to list some signs of helpful and unhelpful people pleasing on the screen to summarize what I talked about today to help you start spotting the differences. It's important to have a specific situation in mind when going through this list because that's part of the point here. We have different behaviors in different areas of life with different people in our lives. For example, you might have an easy time refraining from people pleasing within your relationships, but you do a lot of it at work. Okay, so signs it could be unhelpful people pleasing. I feel compelled or driven to put someone or something else first. Feel like I have to, even when I don't want to. I don't feel like I even have a choice anymore. This behavior comes with a long-term cost to me. And then here it can be helpful to name the costs, like feeling drained, burnt out, emotionally exhausted, etc. What are the costs that you've noticed? I feel guilty when I tend to my own needs or wants in this situation, or I don't even know what they are anymore. I'm not sure the behavior is actually helpful to others. Sometimes we think we're being helpful at first, but we're giving help that wasn't asked for. So this is a good one to look out for. Okay, and so here are some signs that it could be helpful people pleasing. This behavior actually helps others and benefits me. It aligns with my values. And here it can be helpful to name your values like being kind, caring, generous, compassionate, supportive, etc. It doesn't come with a significant cost to me, or if it has a cost, it's minor, temporary, or outweighed by the satisfaction it brings. If I'm putting my needs aside, I'm doing so temporarily, and I know I'll come back to them later. So in summary, not all people-pleasing is bad or needs to be stopped. There's a range between unhelpful and helpful people-pleasing behaviors, and only you get to decide where that line is between the two in your life, mostly based on how much it costs you. Stopping unhelpful people-pleasing in your life is vital because it's important to have time, energy, and mental bandwidth to focus on what matters most to you. It's also important to have a sense of ease and peace that's not usually possible when we're doing a lot of unhelpful people-pleasing. We don't want you drained and emotionally burnt out with nothing left for yourself. We want your cup to be full so that you can stay kind, caring, and generous with your time and energy. And it's not super helpful to think about getting it right with the balance between helpful and unhelpful people-pleasing or changing everything all at once, because that can stress you out further. And no one's giving out gold stars for getting the balance exactly right, no matter how much I wish there were. It takes effort to change these long-standing patterns. So it's good to know there are some things you don't need to change, so you can let those go and focus on the ones you do want to work on. But rest assured, this doesn't have to be another stressful project where you're trying to fix yourself. You can take it slow and be gentle, compassionate, and patient with yourself. And treat yourself with the same care that you treat others. Small, thoughtful steps over time make the biggest difference and keep you from being overwhelmed. Since there are times when internal dynamics, what happens inside of us, make it harder to stop the unhelpful type of people-pleasing, I'll be covering the roots of people-pleasing and more ways to make changes in future videos. These are exactly the kinds of things I cover in my coaching programs, individualized to each person. If you haven't already downloaded my workbook, The People-Pleasing Primer, please do that now. It's free and a perfect way to get started and explore at your own pace. There's a checklist that can help you spot where your unhelpful people-pleasing behaviors come into play. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and share one area in your life you're noticing helpful people-pleasing and one area you're noticing the unhelpful kind. And don't worry, it's not a graded assignment. And if you haven't watched my first video yet, What is People-Pleasing Really? I'll link it here on the screen and in the description. Thanks for watching.